Minister of Police Senzo Mchunu, who has been placed on special leave, says that he stands by his reasons and he takes a personal responsibility for the disbandment of the KwaZulu-Natal Political Killings Task Team instruction last year. Now, during his submission to the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee investigating allegations made by the KZN Police Commissioner General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, Mchunu outlined the circumstances that led to him writing that directive to disband the PKTT. And to talk to us more about what came out of day one of the suspended Minister Mchunu's testimony, we joined here in studio by Ongama Mtimka, who's Acting Director, Raymond Mhlaba Centre for Governance and Leadership at the Nelson Mandela University. And we joined virtually by a Senior Lecturer at the Department of Police Practice at UNISA, who is Doctor Mpho Matlala. Thanks so much to both of you gentlemen for your time this morning. Let's get straight into it because it has been absolutely fascinating. And I think whilst broadly South Africans know in broad strokes what the issues are, as well as what's been ventilated already by General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, but it is the granular detail that we are getting into that I suppose is more interesting. Let me just get your reaction to day one of the evidence led by the suspended police minister before the ad hoc committee. I'll start with you, Ongama.
Good morning to you, Sakina, and your viewers at home. So what happens with these things? Something happens behind closed doors. Somebody discloses what is at play, and we had the minister having the first time to counter the narrative that's been out there. He didn't do a great job of doing that. I think that what he did, the minister, one, I'm happy that he owns up to the decision and he tried the best that he could to come with administrative and good faith arguments as to why he was doing it. And I think that he failed, but I'm sure we will get there. And then also, I think there are broader systemic issues that this relationship between politician and administrator, exposes us to. But in broad terms, the minister failed yesterday to come up with a credible rationale for disbanding the task team in the manner that he did, unilaterally almost, without consultation.
So we'll come back to that, Dr. Mtimka. Dr. Matlala, your view on what we saw yesterday, saw and heard.
Thank you, Sakina, and good morning to the viewers. Yesterday I sort of had a session with one of the media houses and sort of to try and predict or postulate in terms of what Minister Mchunu, what is the angle that he is going to take. And indeed, Minister Mchunu really went on a survival mode of self-preservation, and he delved into the space, correctly so, of owning up to the decision, but went into a technical space of making a constitutional argument that he had constitutional powers to issue that kind of directive, and that sort of delves into the space of interpretation of statutes, and that is going to need expert advice in that context. But by and large, he was not going to throw the president under the bus, because the president is his boss, because you'll remember that he did indicate that he met with General Masemola and the president to discuss this matter of the disbanding of the PKTT. But of course, in the absence, in him not going to throw the president under the bus, he was always going to go for General Masemola. And he did, in a way, because he really brought up the issue of the work study, issues of what the decision was, that it has financial implication, and that decision was never implemented since 2019. And so by implication, he is saying to South Africa, General Masemola has been failing to do his job, and also bringing up issues of governance, in particular by indicating that the PKTT was not officially on the official structure. It was just a trust team, and he argues for the decentralization of that into provinces through various murder and robbery units. And his argument, and I suspect that he might be coming also for General Mkhwanazi, because he took a swipe to say the PKTT was only benefiting KZN. And so that is why he really took the decision that he took. Of course, he went into semantics about the meaning of the word immediate or immediately. And he tried to explain that it's open-ended, it's subjective, and the reasoning was not far-fetched, but this is going to be defeated by all the other dynamics that are surrounding the circumstances, that are the relating circumstances, because now there are also issues of integrity in terms of him being associated with the likes of Mokgotsi.
And that, I thought, was where the evidence leader came into his own, because even after the minister went on that long spiel explaining what the possible reasons were that he took into consideration, the evidence leader brought it sharply back to the letter and how he arrived at that, where he invokes Mary de Haas and Patricia Mashele, I think it was, in terms of people who wrote to the committee, people who wrote to him as police minister, complaining about certain aspects of policing and how these were things that were taken into consideration. But then the evidence leader pulls out the actual letter that he wrote, and he says, but the reasons that you are giving are different from what you stated on this letter. And speaking to the issue of semantics that Dr. Matlala mentions, the issue of immediate, and the evidence leader then went on to read for him why immediate in this instance, given the time frame, meant now.
So for me, that performance shows one thing. The minister doesn't have clear administrative reasons why he disbanded the task team. Because let's play with, for example, what he says around the work study, around the renewed organogram, around what he says, which is really amazing. You know, politicians do this thing of, here are all the whataboutism that he was doing. Here are all the gang-ridden areas, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, and by the way, he contradicts himself a lot, because on one level he's opposed to the political task team, but on another he's open to the idea of specialized team that get pulled from one place to another. He makes an example about Mpumalanga. But the point I wanted to make, Sakina, is that, you see, the minister, all the reasons he cited are not reasons for acting hastily, because he cites reasons that have to do with the business of SABS, which by their nature require a long drawn-out process of consultation. And if it's about the core issues, border management, as per the letter, political killings task team, and then reinforcing all the other aspects of policing.
Closing of ports.
So if it has to do with that, that's not an instruction you are going to give operators hastily and almost compel them, to do. And the reason why it must be done in that way seem to correspond with the evidence that Mkhwanazi and General Mkhwanazi and General Masemola have put to the fore. That it's actually bad faith that makes them the minister to do this. And I listened to Brown Mkhwanazi speaking to your colleague last night, Oliver Dixon, and he throws in party funding, and I think that's where the crux of the issue is. We have a political system that is not presidential and therefore not constituency-based. So politicians are not able to raise money personally for their own campaigns. As a result of that, they have to rely on patronage networks. They have to rely on something because we don't have a framework. Now, the patronage networks compel them to act in ways which sometimes are not in the best interest of the administration, which is why while the minister spent a lot of time pushing back against the idea that as politicians they should not intervene, he talks about how from the president to the IMC, then in the absence of the IMC, he himself as the minister had the obligation to lead SABS and including the political task team. For me, when he says that, the fact that politicians also have broader imperatives than just the survival of the organization and its performance. They also have to do with their own survival, their own staying in office, which sometimes corresponds with keeping patronage networks. And to me, it shows why we cannot allow politicians to play the role that the minister seems to be envisaging. By the way, I think Dr. Matlala was mentioning how he took a swipe at Mkhwanazi. He seems to treat professionals within SABS in the same concept that the ANC use of inyamazana. I don't know if you've heard it. They talk about inyamazana. When they talk about inyamazana, they are talking about the branch, foot soldiers, whose only role is to listen to the party elites and do what is required. So he talks about Mkhwanazi in that fashion to say, Mkhwanazi was there, just like all the other generals in the province. He's not a special guy. He stopped short of saying, this is not a special guy. All they have to do is to be Nyamazana, just like our branch foot soldiers are in the ANC. And that's the difference he's not making. The administration is not that. These are not Nyamazana. These are professionals with duly delegated powers, which he thinks derive from the minister, but they actually derive from the law.
And of course, we're out of time, but just very briefly, Dr. Matlala, with regard to what is actually happening, and if you listen to what Minister Mchunu had to say in invoking the salaries and allowances that other people within the police service actually get, and this is clear that it is also a fight for mind share, a narrative, that needs to be pushed in order to gain mind share. How do you think he's faring on that score?
I think the minister is trying to appear to be a responsible political principal who is concerned about accountability and the sort of judicious or optimization of funds. Of the funds allocated to the SAPS and trying to spread them throughout the province and so forth. But I think that is disingenuous, because in him doing that, that is exactly the point that places him within the political, the operational environment, and that is exactly what really constitutes the overreach that we are talking about. And in so doing, the leadership of the SAPS has been thrown into disarray, because the minister, in the actual fact, failed to focus on what he should focus on, which is policy oversight. And his point of departure should be the NDP. He should be concerned about the professionalization of the police, the demilitarization of the police, and governance issues. Instead of giving directives, he should have asked questions to say, why is this happening? Why is the PKTT still in place? Please explain and give me reasons, as opposed to him really giving directives like that.
And of course, that letter that was issued then, the directive or the instruction, however you wish to view it, lots of semantics at play, Dr. Mtimka, issued on the 31st after 5 p.m., 31st of December. The evidence leader questions, the timing of that. And more importantly, the fact that that very same information is then leaked to Brown Mkhwanazi, who further then leaks it to Kat Matlala. And that also made for a very interesting point in the proceedings.
Yeah, it's leaked the very next day. His answer is saying police work on the 31st and the 1st, but to me it shows this hastiness. If the minister wants us to believe that he's acting in good faith, then he must tell us why in attempting to ensure efficiency and optimization of processes, he thought it necessary to strong-arm the administration rather than to bring the administration along, because such a view would have people within SABC who would actually appreciate it, and then it becomes the strength of the argument. And on the basis, now, because it's not in good faith, that's the point the other colleagues are making, it's clear that it's not pursuant to our objectives. And I think that Sakina, Doc makes the point about how the minister wants to be seen to be an effective steward. He also evokes the PFMA, his reporting requirements, among other things. And I think that he also, by the same token, must appreciate how conflicted he is as a politician to have a more directional role to the administration. Because unlike cops who only have to focus on eliminating crime, he has to eliminate crime, remain in office in an environment where he must keep networks that are not so good. And because of that, he must see why it's important for politicians to just tell us the objectives. It's good to say, guys, focus on the political killings, dusting, but also the gangs and all of the other things, and then leave the work to the police to decide how to best allocate resources.
Well, we've got more to come. Day 2 today, continue with the ad hoc committee, Dr. Mchunu, and of course more evidence will be led. And then on Monday, he'll be back, and that's when the members of parliament will have their turn to question him. But thank you so much to our guest this morning, Dr. Ongama Mtimka, Acting Director of the Raymond Mhlaba Centre for Governance and Leadership at the Nelson Mandela University, and a political analyst, and Dr. Mpho Matlala, Senior Lecturer at the Department of Police Practice at UNISA, talking to us about what came out of the first day of the suspended Minister of Police Senzo Mchunu's testimony before Parliament's Ad Hoc Committee.